about 45 minutes, and then we'll have about 15 minutes or so for questions. So now let me introduce our panelists. Salma Hayek was one of the biggest television stars in Mexico and came to the United States about 10 years ago. She's been in two such movies as From Dusk Till Dawn, Fool's Rush In, Wild Wild West, and Time Code. The production company has also made a number of movies in Mexico and for Showtime, I think, right? Well,
independent filmmaking.
Okay. Her new movie, Frida, in which she plays the title role, she produced, and it's directed by Julie Taymor, and Frida hasn't opened yet, but already Salma's been hailed for her courage for going the whole distance with Frida Kahlo's monobrow. And I also just learned when I came out here that Salma's just finished directing a movie for Showtime called
You can do it. Next time. Give it a shot. The Maldonado Miracle. The Maldonado Miracle.
Maldonado Miracle. I did not know.
You said it perfectly right there.
Now, Jennifer Jason Leigh is a master of the extreme character. Since we first saw her in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, she's played a phone sex operator in Robert Altman's Shortcuts, a prostitute in Last Exit to Brooklyn, a drug-addicted narc in Rush, a psychotic roommate in Cinder White Female, fast-talking 1940s newspaper reporter in The Hudsucker Proxy, and the New Yorker's own Dorothy Parker. She's produced the film Georgia, and also the film The Anniversary Party, which she also co-wrote, co-directed, and starred in with Alan Cummings. And Matt Dillon has appeared in more than 30 films, including The Outsiders, Drugstore Cowboy, Singles, To Die For, Wild Things, and There's Something About Mary. He recently finished directing his first movie, City of Ghosts, which he also wrote, starred in, along with James Caan and Gerard Depardieu. Tim Blake Nelson, here at the end, is a director, writer, producer, actor, and as anyone who saw Oh Brother, Where Art Thou knows, a world-class yodeler. He's directed 3 movies: Eye of God, which is based on a play that he wrote, Oh, a retelling of Othello set in an American high school, and his newest project, which he wrote, directed, and co-produced, is a movie about the Holocaust called The Gray Zone. As an actor, he is probably best known as Delmar, the sweet nitwit convict in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And he's in 3 movies that are currently in the theaters: Minority Report, The Good Girl, and Cherish. Now, there's a long tradition in Hollywood of actors wearing lots of different hats. Charlie Chaplin and Orson Welles were just among the first generation of multitaskers. And these days, lots and lots of actors, George Clooney, Mel Gibson, John Malkovich, Denzel Washington, are directing and producing their own movies. And I'm curious to find out how each of you decided to branch out this way. For some people, it seems to be the culmination of a long-held dream, and for others, it seems to be a way to, it happens almost by accident, just a way to get a pet project made. And Jennifer, how did you decide that you wanted to direct after acting in some way?
Well, I had just done this dogma movie in Africa, and so it was really inspiring because you could make a movie so cheaply, and yet there was so much freedom involved and spontaneity, and the costs were really minimal. And it was just me and Alan Cummings sitting around one night thinking about movies we'd like to see, because sometimes as an actor you get, or as anyone, you just get frustrated by the movies that are being made, and you think about the things you're drawn to and attracted to, and there's fewer and fewer of them. And the idea of making something, for very little money that would actually be something you'd want to see, that you could do with all your friends and write for your friends, it's kind of seemed like this idyllic thing, but then we actually did it. And it was just an incredibly fantastic experience. And by keeping the budget really small, we were able to really make the movie that we wanted to make. And it was great.
I also imagine that when you produce a studio or a distributor for financing, if you can say, we're going to shoot this movie in a short amount of time, and all of our friends are going to come along and be in it, it just makes it a much more attractive package for that, right?
Yeah.
How long did it take you to shoot the anniversary
Well,
party?
because we shot on DV and we always had 2 cameras, sometimes 3 cameras going, sometimes 4, we shot it in 19 days, which was extremely, I mean, hopefully the next movie I shoot, I actually want to shoot on film. Abandon that altogether. But, like, it was great for this, and it worked really well. There's kind of an immediacy and intimacy that video gives you. And we had John Bailey, who's just really brilliant DP shooter. So we had all these great people to lean on and help us realize it.
Well, Selma, you made Frida with the help of a lot of your friends too, but it took 7 years pretty much, right, from start to finish to get that project going. What's the difference? Because you were doing a big project that was with lots of rewrites, and wasn't Frida also at one point going to be done by Madonna and another time by Jennifer Lopez? It seemed that it was a huge, complicated project to get off the ground.
Yeah, it's not a big project. The budget is not a big budget, but the subject matter was not a favorite subject matter of the people that distribute or give the money to make movies. And also part of the reason why it took so long to get made, I could have done it before, but I wasn't happy with the elements that were there, which is another thing. You can make movies, you can make movies fast, but is it the movie you want to make? So it was a very complicated story to tell, and it needed that process. It's actually 8 years to get the script right, to find the right director, to find the right people, to be involved. There are certain projects that need to. I love to cook. They need to marinate, different dishes have different processes. And also the subject matter, of course, it was about this Mexican couple. It's a love story about these Mexican communists, Already there is no very popular. The love story between a hairy woman and a fat man. In America, people what's sexy is not to eat and to wax a lot. So it was not a very popular idea. And you try to explain to them that it's a very modern love story, and all they can think is period piece Mexicans, communists, bisexuals, drink.
So how did you sell Harvey Weinstein on this eventually?
The project was somewhere else, and we had been working with it, I don't know, 3-4 years, and they wanted to do it. We had a script that was okay, and they wanted to do it. And then when I see under what circumstances they wanted to do it, I ran for my life with the script, which created a lot of complications. And then I took it to Harvey, and he was nice because he read the script and he was surprised because it is an extraordinary story. And the one thing I did, I wanted to bring into this project was that Frida is seen as a martyr, and this woman that suffers so much. And that's not really who she was. She was a woman that was absolutely passionate and in love with life. She made the best out of every situation, and she had an amazing sense of humor. So just the fact that he was so surprised and that he was laughing out loud, it was really got him intrigued. So.
That's great. Well, Matt, your first movie is shot in Cambodia, and I read in one of the clips that it's the first full-length feature film has been entirely shot in Cambodia for 40 years, and it sounds like you had a hell of a lot of obstacles to overcome too. Poisonous snakes, unexploded landmines, tigers. It sounds worse than Harvey Weinstein. How did you?
No, those were really not obstacles. Nobody got bit by any snakes. No landmines were detonated, at least accidentally detonated. I think the hardest part is, sort of raising the money and doing all that stuff leading up to it, getting the first film made. I also took me nearly 7 years as well. And I agree, on airplanes. And I think, I agree with Selma in that it's not that it takes 7 years because you're working every day.
No, I mean that
It
as an
ruminates.
actor, getting the whole thing together for the first time is obviously very difficult. Getting people to want to use for film who haven't done it before.
Yeah, it's absolutely, it's a tough process for sure. But actually making the film was a dream. That part of it was great. The hard part was the money flying part and trying to figure out how you're going to sort of get it going again. But in actuality, often what happens is that it's a blessing in disguise because it gives you more time to improve the script. And I ended up with I ended up with a much, I think, was a better cast than I would have imagined. And I think that was part of the waiting process.
Now, Tim, you've directed a lot of theater as well as 3 movies, but you started out as an actor, right? Did you always want to be an actor first or a director first, or how did it unfold for you?
Well, I was supposed to be the next James Bond, and I turned it down because I was just sick of being so successful as an actor. And they went to that Pierce Brosnan. I think you turned it down, though. No, that's not true. Actually, acting school was kind of a microcosm for me because I was playing character roles in this conservatory in New York City, and I'd gone to college and I majored in classics, and I really enjoyed college very much. And I was a pretty intense student in college. And then I found myself in this acting school in New York for 4 years, in which wonderful acting school, but in which there was so much concentration on dance, movement, voice, text analysis. Essentially, there was concentration exclusively on those aspects of an actor's life or of the profession directly associated with acting, and that's what a conservatory should be. But I missed the academic rigors of college. And so I started writing for my classmates and directing them. And I found it incredibly fulfilling. I still enjoyed acting very much, and I still enjoy acting very much, but what I really enjoyed was writing and directing for extraordinary actors. And I had 3 actors who were extraordinary, willing to work on my material. So when I got out of school, I'm sort of a weird-looking guy, and I was getting a decent amount of work in theater, but sort of like acting school, even though I was getting work as an actor, something was missing, and so I kept writing, and I started to have a measure of success as a playwright, and that led to writing movies, and that led to directing them. And any success I've had as an actor has been kind of a wonderful surprise that I've enjoyed. But I'm sort of doing both equally right now, preferring neither.
Well, unlike Matt and Jennifer, you haven't directed yourself in any of your movies. Do you have any?
Or me.
Or you? They directed themselves in their movie. And have you directed yourself? No. Right. But do either of you have any interest in doing that? in directing yourselves?
If I felt that I was the most appropriate person for a role, I would do it. Obviously, the two of them think a lot more of themselves. And Salma and I have a measure of humility.
Because I would never be in a movie.
No, I, first of all, I mean, what I think separates me from the three of them is that I don't think I could ever get one of my movies made based on casting myself in it. So I'm always, you know, if I choose to take a role, I'm kind of wasting a financing push.
I think that's probably a good lead in to watch clip of the anniversary party, which Jennifer directed, and she can tell us about directing herself in this amazing scene. You have that ready? Is there a monitor that we can see?
When I was in rehab for the second time, they wouldn't even let us watch your drug addict movie because they said you were too real. I worship you. And I just could not be more flattered because I know that the part that I'm playing in Joe's movie is based on you as a young woman. I'm just overwhelmed. And I really want to do it justice. I'm hoping that maybe we can spend some time together. I'm gushing. It's my worst quality.
Not at all.
So rude. I'm sorry. I'm Sky Davis.
I'll be my pains.
God, did anyone ever tell you look like Peter Sellers?
No, never. Would you excuse us, Sky? It's time for Sally's meds.
It was really nice to meet you again.
So I know you had a co-director. Well, what was it like directing you yourself in this kind of movie?
I love the director. And the director loved me. It was great because I knew exactly what the director wanted. And because we wrote it and everything, the great thing is I just couldn't get in my own way. I had too many things to focus on. And I knew exactly how I wanted the scene to play. And I had no one to please, except myself. And I'm easy to please if I'm the one doing the pleasing. You know, whatever I do is great. It just made my life a lot easier, actually, because I wasn't trying to intuit someone else's desires and hoping that we're on the same page, in a way. And nothing felt awkward in my mouth because I wrote it, and so, you know, and I wrote it together. So it was always very, very facile and easy, and I was working with such great actors, so it was really fun. It was great to be able to like act with people I loved and had really years and years and years of history with, and to be able to write for them and be able to play with them, and also not at all be self-conscious because there was no time to obsess or get neurotic about any scene. Even the most difficult scenes were a joy to shoot because your mind is on so many other things that you just, as an actor, sometimes you can get in your own way, and there just wasn't any time for it. So I think it's kind of some of my freest acting in a way.
Martin Amis has written that one of the things that happened to him when he had children is that it had this wonderful ego diminishing effect. And I've heard actors say that directing has, creates a similar effect, that you can't get all self-involved about your character, but you have to pay attention to the costumes and the lighting and the color of the pillows and everybody else, and you give a kind of more direct, less obsessive kind of performance. But now you're famous for doing exhaustive research into the characters that you play, writing diaries in your voice and all kinds of things like that. When you were directing all of these different characters in this ensemble, was there a temptation to get really deeply into each of these characters and kind of micro?
There was. I mean, that was always why I was sort of afraid of directing before this, was that I thought, Jesus, if I have to do this much work for one character that I'm playing, I couldn't do it for everyone. But it helps to write the film, because then you really do know the backstories of each character, and I actually did do like little diaries for each character, and then when I would talk to the actors about the characters, I could sort of say, and maybe this happened to them, what do you feel about that, and it's just all the stuff. And also as an actor, there's so many times where you walk onto a set and you think, this is not the way my character's room would be. My character would never have this poster on their wall, they would never have this in their drawer, you know, all that stuff, because I'm really detail-oriented to the point of being like,
You don't
finesse.
ask them before you get there to show you.
Sometimes you don't as an actor. But when you're directing, it's everything you want. You know, I mean, it's so, you really are detailing it to exactly, because I'm to the point of like what the pencils look like, you know, which is, can be absurd, but it's helpful, and so when you're directing, you actually get to do that. And yeah, so I loved all of that. Yeah, it is great.
Selma, do you feel that your experience as an actor made you, what do you feel that your experience as an actor brought to your ability as a director? I think that you know how to talk to actors better than a lot of other directors do, or what do you think the connection is?
I don't know, I found it so completely different. I didn't stop to think, you know, try to connect what were the parts about acting that were helping me for that. It helps you because you understand some of the actors' needs better. Like I think there's a stronger connection, and also that's usually what people that work with other actors that direct say. But I don't know exactly what other things about acting that I want to do, because I think it's a completely different thing. Like when you're acting, you are obsessed about one character, and there's so many things you know about this character that never even make it to the script. When you're directing, you're obsessed about telling a story that it's very clear, and then you are only interested in what parts of those characters can actually help you tell a bigger story. I think that maybe what helped me, what I found helped me to tell the story was something about being Mexican, actually. Because I had to shoot this in Utah, I had to cast most of the people from Utah, we had no money, and we had 25 days to shoot it and all this. And in Mexico, because it's so disorganized, you're not spoiled like here, you know, you have to learn how to be ingenious and improvise. And I really think this organization that I grew up with really helped me adapt to any situation and just be focused on the stories more than being an actor.
Why don't we look at the clip from Frida now, which is co-produced with Dillon.
Yeah.
Why don't we talk until the clip?
Okay, let's talk about.
Matt, did you find, actually something I wanted to ask all of you is, as you started to direct, do you feel that you learned things from particular directors who had directed you as an actor? And you've worked with a lot of amazing directors. You worked with Coppola and Gus Van Sant. And do you bring that to your own directing?
Yeah, I think certainly those two directors that you mentioned I learned a lot from. But you know, I was thinking about when you asked about, you know, Jennifer and I having acted in the films. I wanted to say that I think before I directed myself in a film, I directed myself in quite a few films. Because often a lot of directors that I worked with, unfortunately, don't have any clue or aren't interested in directing actors. Often that I found that to be the case or experienced in that capacity. So I felt it was one of my biggest concerns was doing that, but I felt as if I thought of myself as an actor first and a director second. because as an actor, you have very specific responsibilities. And I felt it was very important for me to come prepared as an actor first. And that would free me to direct, because I often found myself on set knowing what needed to be done to, pull the scene off seeing what needed to be done, and was totally prepared to act. So, anyway, to answer your question about working with directors, yeah, I learned a lot from a lot of filmmakers that I've worked with.
And when you were working with those guys, did you find yourself consciously taking mental notes of, oh, that's how you do this, one day I'll direct and I'll use that, or is it more kind of unconscious osmosis?
Well, I have a tendency, like the directors that I've worked with who don't shy away from dream sequences were the directors that had kind of an influence on me, because I like that. I know there's some sort of screenwriting proceduralists who think there's no room for dreams in films, and I personally like that sort of thing.
What's the favorite?
I don't know, like for instance, Gus Van Sant is is very visual in that way, and certainly Francis is that way. Tim Hunter, who I worked with, likes to work. I just remember that those were directors that I worked with that I remembered that were interested in doing that sort of thing. Some people think that that's, there's no room for that sort of thing. And yeah, I don't know, some filmmakers or some people, but I guess I sort of like the idea of experimenting with those things.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think I could direct myself because I think I would be not focused on what I'm doing as an actress, but thinking, what's he doing? What did he say? No, that's the wrong. Or, but I wonder if he's framing this right because he's moving too much to the right. That's not how he blocked it, or the dog is not barking. Should I say pause? Should I finish my scene? Because maybe I'm going to be doing the next.
These were all things I was afraid of. I mean, I was nervous about it because I had directed in the past, and where I wasn't in it, like only a couple music videos and an episode of Oz on television. And my mind was so far away from acting. But like I said, I was prepared when I arrived in the set. But again, there is this kind of freedom where I felt, I was so unjudgmental of myself, I would just do anything. I didn't care. I mean, what I mean is I wasn't afraid of failing. I wasn't afraid of some director who didn't really have good taste or a good eye. Or, I found that, and I relied on the monitor. I'll be perfectly honest about that. And that was one of the things that somebody advised me, said, trust the monitor, use it, you'll know if you have it or not. And it doesn't take long to stop. And I liked it. I liked the pressure and sort of, the worst part for me in filmmaking is sort of when you're an actor, is just sitting around waiting. It drives me nuts.
And when you're directing, there's no sitting around at all. You have no time in the trailer, I'm sure, right?
No, not at all. Lunch I'm on the set,
You're distracted.
Because what I think is really, really helpful when you're acting is to spend a lot of time with your DP beforehand. Like, if you have a month with your DP beforehand, spend it, and every shot. I mean, you're always open to improvising on the day. For example, there's a day where the sun's coming in, it's 4 o'clock, you've missed being able to shoot in that direction, so you improvise something. But because you have it so mapped out, I mean, you just have to be, which I love, but you have to be incredibly over-prepared. And cast people that you think are brilliant. Because it's like when you're acting in a scene, if you're not involved and if you don't give up your trust to the other actor, there's never going to be anything there anyway. But if you lose yourself in your character and you trust that they are that character, then sometimes something amazing and beautiful can happen. And it's the same with directing. You have to have a certain amount of trust and freedom in that. And you have a good monitor that's properly calibrated, very important, and a great DP that you trust and you can work with, and you just map it out, and then you can give it up. And because you've got all those things to focus on, it does really allow you to be free as an actor in a way that I haven't probably never, maybe I experienced like once or twice, but never on such a large scale.
I think they have the free to clip, right?
You've lost weight.
You've lost your clothes.
Is that why you're here? To offer your condolences?
I'm here to see how you are. How do you feel?
Tired of answering that question. Otherwise, like shit. How are you?
I'm here to ask you to marry me.
I don't need raspberry cake.
I do.
I've lost the toes of one foot. My back is useless. I have an infection of the kidneys. I smoke, I drink, I curse. I can't have children. I have no money and a stack of hospital bills. Should I keep going?
Practically a letter of recommendation.
So I've heard actors say that producing and directing their movies is a way of kind of safeguarding their work. I mean, if you have more control over the whole picture, you know that you're not going to end up giving a great performance in a mediocre movie. Is that inspired you to want to produce and direct and control?
You have to have some special motivation to produce, because production is hell. It's the worst part of the business, I think. It's very stressful and so. But in my case, we forget about getting a great movie. Getting it made, period. I had to become a producer.
But this movie wouldn't have been made without you.
Right.
Without your ability.
Try to make the movies that you want to make instead of just going with the flow or sitting around because there's no flow. I mean, in my particular case, because I am Mexican, I have an accent, I this, I that, you really have less opportunities. So one day I caught myself that for some years I had been just sitting down complaining. Why don't they do better parts for women? Why don't they do this kind of movies, which is sort of what.
So you were getting unhappy with the kinds of roles you were
I was getting unhappy with me complaining. So I said, I'm gonna sit here and complain, I'm gonna get up from my ass and do something, Do something, and if I don't accomplish it for me, maybe I can get it far enough where I can accomplish it for the next one, and maybe that can push it, So I got up from my ass and I started, trying to create this company that does films, usually about strong female characters.
Because you had been cast in a lot of bombshell roles, right? And originally you were cast as a maid in Dream On, right?
Which was better than the bombshell. The maid was a good part. But it was sort of like a bombshell maid, But at the beginning, I had a choice. I would have played the maid or the East LA, Chola, or the bombshell. And the bombshell had a very potential for a crossover. So it was good for me when I did it, because when I arrived here, they wouldn't cast the Mexicans even as bombshells. Unless it was a really low-class bombshell. So, I played the part, whatever. Got me a lot of dates. And when I felt strong enough to break away from it, and I did.
Now, Jennifer, do you also feel that by having this kind of control in the movies that you make, that you can tailor, you can just do just the kinds of parts that you want to do? I mean, you've always taken just amazing, distinctive parts.
Yeah, I've been really lucky, I work with directors that I love so much. I just got to work with Jane Campion, who's one of my all-time heroes. So, so it's been like really great. I've learned from so many people, but yeah, the idea of actually doing it yourself, like writing something for yourself and directing it is really exciting, and it's, as long as I can keep doing it, I will, because then you actually do get to make movies that interest you in an obviously very personal way, and yeah, it just opens up a whole other world, and it's hard, but it's so rewarding that.
Do you have anyone in the works that you want to direct?
Yes, I do. I'm only on page 27 now, so.
So you want to write and direct it and
Yeah.
Great. And how about you, Matt? You have another one going?
Not really, no. I'm just kind of want to act. It's a lot easier for a while. And no, I have some ideas, but I really don't have anything that's really close with some characters, you know, so I'm working on. But I don't have, you know, this film that I did was really a difficult, it was a long haul. And I want to jump, you know, I always hear people say, oh, you got to jump right back into the next one. I'm going, yeah. But, and I will, but I think right now I just want to, you know, just do a little acting for a while.
I also think that what's exciting about it is, first, you know, when I became an actress, I said I can cheat life. They tell you you have one life, and then you become an actor, and then you can have many lives. You know, live in different periods and in different situations, social backgrounds. But through directing, I found that maybe you don't want to do it so that you can write good parts for yourself. But you want to do it because sometimes you want to tell stories that have nothing to do with anything that you could be capable of doing as an actress. I can direct a film about a man that's from Scandinavia. That is a story that is connected to me in some other level that breaks every physicality. I'm shooting because he's a writer. You can, like, it's a way of exorcism when you write that has nothing to do with the parts that you could actually play. It's freedom because you're not limited to a body. You can actually tell a story that means something to you at a different level.
And Tim's second movie, a fellow based in an American high school, I think while you were editing it, the shootings at Columbine happened, correct? And then a long period of delay set in, and then it was very hard to get the movie in theaters because people were spooked by it. Is that right? It sounds like, and then when it came out, it was a critical and commercial success. It was an extraordinary movie. But after all of that drama, I was kind of amazed that you would then just jump right into this hugely ambitious project of The Grey Zone, which was filmed in Bulgaria, right, with lots and lots and lots of extras and complicated special effects. And so you weren't at all deterred by that nightmare wrangling?
Well, there's a catch-22 in at least in I think that probably each of us shares. You'd be crazy to direct these insane projects, but they're the only kinds of projects you want to direct. And when I read about the Zondervan Commandos, who were the subject of the Grey Zone, I found their...
Explain to the audience what they are.
The Grey Zone is about the Zondervan Commandos, who were Jewish inmates in the Nazi death camps, who were forced to aid in exterminating their own. And in exchange for this, they were given 4 more months of life and in the camp, but also privileges which were obscene by camp standards. They wore the clothing of the dead. They had all the food and alcohol they wanted because the Nazis wanted them to be physically strong enough to do the very hard manual labor of running the machinery of death. And they allowed them alcohol so that they would be anesthetized to the work they were doing emotionally. And I found this the moral question at the center of their predicament in arriving in a death camp and being presented with this horrible option. Do this work, abet the slaughter of others, or be killed yourselves. It seemed such a basic, quintessential human predicament, pitting the individual will to survive against one's impulses as a social animal to work for the betterment of others. That I just had to work on this and write it. Similarly, when I was given the script of O, which I did not write, I felt, my God, after all of these sometimes insipid but often entertaining high school Shakespeare adaptations, here is someone who's had the temerity to take a Shakespearean tragedy and set it in an American high school at a time when there's been this raft of high school shootings, and there have been many shootings before Columbine. And I found this such a provocative and trenchant piece of writing. Again, I knew that we would probably run into trouble. I knew that the story's very relevance suggested that there would be more shootings probably during the filming of the movie, and that would cause us trouble. I knew all this. But I found it, again, irresistible. And directing is such an arduous process, an incredibly rewarding one, but an arduous one, that you sort of think, well, why would I apply myself to a cookie-cutter movie? That's exactly the kind of project I want to work on. And the Gray Zone, was a logical next film in that respect.
Well, why don't we look at the clip from the Gray Zone now? It's a very intense clip in the middle of the movie. Do you want to say anything else about it, or?
Well, let me just see. Yeah, I think I've told you enough. The Zonder Commandos were Jewish inmates in the death camps who did all the work around the gas chambers and crematoria. Everything. They processed the bodies. And I think that's all you need to know for this.
I got the girl. You got a date? So take the fucking body.
Why are you up there?
There's a girl.
I said, what are you doing up here?
There's a young girl in that car just about to gas. She's still breathing. We're taking this one.
What will be taking?
We're taking the body.
Let her get the hair.
I said we're taking her hair and all.
She lives with hair. I need to know why.
She's a twin. What's the trouble? We need this body for the doctor.
So we can get the hair.
So we should people. We're taking her now with the hair.
She's a twin. Where's the other one?
The other one was caught before she got on the lift.
And how was she killed? I thought they were taken alive.
Are you saying I'm lying?
I kept this unit alive 9 months.
Well, I care. So you're alive. We're all alive. We're all shit and gold. Make your point.
I don't want trouble.
If you want trouble, send me down to the doctor with her head shaved.
Take her. What do I care?
Tell her Oh God, I said we fucking have her.
When we were in the green room, I was saying to him that it's really noteworthy that how the movies that he directs, which address all kinds of very deep questions about the human condition and human responsibility, are so different totally from the kinds of characters that he plays in movies. Is that an intentional choice? I mean, do you see acting as kind of more of a the roles are just sort of more of a fun, larky thing, and you reserve this other part of your personality for directing, or?
I mean, quite honestly, only now, this year, have I ever turned down acting work. So really, I've been, and I think I still am, and one always is, at the mercy of what's offered. Hollywood, or even the independent world, has not been clamoring for my services in dramatic works. And we'll see what happens in the future. Matt was just talking to me about a lead in his next movie. And Jennifer is writing that script for Salma and me.
You told us earlier that you were actually in The Outsiders, right?
Right. I met Matt when I was 15. I was an extra in The Outsiders in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And he remembered me.
So they played pool together, right?
Yeah.
He told me I had to bring him.
So no, I mean, I really did want to, I would love to have played a role in The Grey Zone. I really would have. It's an incredibly, though it happened 50 years ago, before I was born, the story is incredibly personal to me. My mother is a refugee, a Holocaust refugee, and also the moral issues really were resonant to me, resonated with me as well, and I really did want to play a role. But David Arquette, who you see in that clip, was interested in playing the role I would have played, and I just didn't see any sense in putting myself in that role, actually having nothing to do with the financing issues. I was joking about that earlier. But because I simply felt he was more suitable. And I also really delighted in being able to, as a director, show this extraordinary actor as he has never been seen before, which is, I think, what you were speaking of earlier. People think of David as this goofball because he has been constricted by the roles he's been offered. He's had a wonderfully successful career in those roles, but he's never been seen in anything like this. And it makes me feel wonderful as an actor, not as a director, but as an actor, to be able to give an actor like that the chance to show himself in a new way.
Matt, aside from poisonous snakes and all that in Cambodia, another thing that must have been scary directing your first movie is directing Gerard Depardieu and James Caan and being a first-time director. And what was that like for you the first day on set?
Well, James Caan was basically directing me. not really. Well, I was really fortunate. I mean, I had Stellan Skarsgård was a great actor, and Natasha McElhone was great. I had really great actors in those roles. I also, and that made, I mean, people have said, you know, casting is like half your job as a director, and I think that's true, you know. I mean, certainly they informed those roles which I wrote those characters, or at least co-wrote those characters.
Did you write them with those actors in mind?
I'd be lying to say that I did write them, I had them in mind at different times, but I knew too well that the casting process would, you know, I mean, Gerard Depardieu, I wanted him to be in the film 4 years before I made the film, and everybody said it's impossible. He's busy for the next 2.5 years. I said, I'll never get it. The movie didn't get made for another, you know, 4 years. So, but yeah, I thought about it. He was obviously, I thought about him. I thought about some other actors too, but he brought a lot of levity to it, so I was fortunate in that way. But I also had a lot of non-actors in the film, a lot of Cambodia, I mean, with what has happened there. All the first people to get killed under the Khmer Rouge were the actors and the artists. And in the film, there's only one actor who actually survived, and he was a dwarf, which is kind of funny. I thought, well, how did he survive? I don't understand why. And I thought, well, maybe there's some sort of superstition about killing a dwarf. In any case, he survived. In any case, he did. But I had wonderful luck, and I had a great experience with these terrific people that I found, and non-actors who gave so much. I found them on the street, in cafes. One of them, I think, in the clip that was shot, his name was Sarabhat Khan. He was a motor taxi driver, and he never acted. I had an impossible time finding that character. Couldn't find him in the States or Thailand or Cambodia. And he was looking for a fare. You know, he was it's sort of like in the film, a mass of these guys, a motor taxi driver looking for a fare. And I said, he was very funny. And I said, listen, I want you to try out for this film. So that's how I cast the guy. It was Christmas Day. I remember thinking, what a great Christmas present later on, because he really was really lucky to found somebody to play that role. And, but basically everybody was, most of the Cambodian actors never acted.
Well, why don't we look at that clip? I think this has your taxi driver.
Stop.
There you go, sir. You get to the Belgium. Yes. Well, I know. I know this right here. You know this place? I know, really. You far from here? Not so far. Over there. Okay. Go there. Stop. Where you from, sir?
United States.
Oh, yes, I know where it goes. My name's Sok.
So, Jim, is this place far?
Not so far. Don't worry, sir, I'm a taxi driver.
Good.
Yes. Not so long way.
Do you think will he go on and have a career as an actor?
Well, I don't know, but he's really, he was so great. He was so natural. He gave so much to the, I mean, he's a really interesting guy. I mean, his whole life, he's probably exactly my age, and he's experienced so much more than me. I mean, he's been a soldier, he's been an orphan, his father was, and there were so many of the things that happened in his life that formed that character that I had to use. It was so much better than anything I could have written. And so I was, rewriting as we went along and using a lot of the stuff that came from within him in his life. And
And when does the movie open?
I think it's going to be, it'll probably be coming out at the beginning half of next year. So I can't get a straight answer out of it. But I think they're really fine.
I just noticed what time it was, so I think we should probably answer some questions.
I was just wondering how you save yourself from making mistakes. If you are in control of every aspect of the movie, who is the person or the voices that you look to say, this is not going to work or this is working? How do you judge? If you have invested so much of your time in writing it, directing it, starring it, how do you sort of step back and say this is working or it's not working?
Me or?
If you've done it, I mean, I would say.
Okay, I'll say that, first of all, I have a very strong idea of what it is that I want. Obviously, I've written it, so it wasn't something where I couldn't give it to anybody else to direct. And my writing partner, Barry Gifford, would say to me, you'd kill the guy if you hired somebody. You're not going to do that. And in actuality, I relied on everybody. I had great people around me. I mean, the way that I usually would say something like to my cameraman, Jim Bernal, I'd say, so Jim, I'm thinking this is what we'll do here, and what do you think, Jim? But meanwhile, I know it's pretty much what I want to do, you know? And so that would often cause problems because it would open this door. But no, I had wonderful people. I really did have wonderful people around me. And I really learned to rely on my instincts. And I think that's the thing I got more out of being a director than anything, because you don't have time to really, you don't have the luxury of time, so you have to really rely on your gut, you know. And I think it's real, that's the thing that I found, is I relied on my gut, and here instead of, I really relied on my instincts. So.
Any of the rest of them will answer that question?
Yeah, I mean, while you're shooting it, you really do sort of know what you've got because you've got the monitor and you have your own sensibility and all that. And then, hopefully you have a great editor that you trust and enjoy working with, which I did. I mean, just the greatest editor, and we worked really closely together. And then the great thing was bringing in directors that I had worked with and really loved and admired, or directors that were friends of mine, to show them cuts along the way. And just say, what do you think? What do you get from this? What you're feeling, you know? And so that was incredibly helpful. I mean, you have to be incredibly single-minded and controlling and freakish in that way, and also incredibly open, because you never know who's going to say, hey, you know what? Be merciless. You can be a little more ruthless in this scene. And you always have to be open to the idea that what you wrote or what you initially envisioned, maybe you don't need that scene, or you don't, But yeah, the editing part, you learn a tremendous amount in. But on the day, you kind of have to own it and know it and trust yourself.
Was there anything, this is a question for Jennifer, was there anything special about the experience of having been directed by himself, if he's been another woman, and first-time director, and you could help you out,
Yeah, well, because of her father, I think. I mean, I've actually worked with quite a few. Amy Heggerling, Fast Times at Ridgemont High was her first film, so I've worked with a few women directors. And Angelica, I think because, being who she is, that she had a tremendous sort of presence and command, and I just think she really enjoyed directing a lot. And you just got that feeling, she loved doing it, and she's such like a guy's woman, sort of. You know what I mean, though? She just is. She's like really tough and strong and sexy, and she's got that voice and the whole thing. And here she is directing about like this white trash, incestuous family in the backwoods of Carolina. It was hilarious. But she always looked fabulous too. But no, I think she had a blast doing it.
Jennifer, I wanted to ask you, what were the mechanics of co-directing? I mean, it sounds like you directed yourself without coming directing, so how did that work?
We both sort of did everything. Because I worked with the Coens, I had this idea that we'll be just like the Coens. We'll just do everything, because they both do everything. But the fact is, they're brothers. We had known each other about a year. But it worked. It ended up amazingly working, because we did have this, we're so diametrically different as people, but we love each other so much, and we really did have a sort of singular sensibility. We really trusted each other. And I think we balanced one another really well. And we decided early on, because the Coens being the model, although they take a different credit, they both do everything. And so that's what we decided. And one would never sort of, like one wouldn't direct and the other the camera, or you know.
Did you ever disagree on something?
We disagreed on one shot. And yeah, one shot. And it was a shot of an empty room. And it was the last day of shooting, and we were both really tired, and it was like a marriage going sour. But we made up at breakfast.
How did you decide? Flip a coin?
No, you know, ultimately it was just, you know, it was like, actually, you know, I was kind of being bratty, because I was the one that was like a few minutes late, and he'd already been there, and he was having like low blood sugar, and so he had sort of set the shot, and I was like, not set the shot before I walked in the thing. I didn't say that, but inside I was furious. And then I looked at the shot and I said, well, we've seen the room from this angle. Maybe we should see the room from over here. And he's like, wherever you want to find it. And we walked out. So then we moved the camera and we looked at it. I was like, actually, let's just put it back.
There was like a degree of separation anxiety.
When?
The fact that you guys were wrapping it up.
Yeah, maybe there was. Because he was going off to do Josie and the Pussycats. It was very important while I was going to go start the editing process. I did a little bit of that. It was good. I love making up over breakfast, though. So I still remember like what he ate, and just his face. He's so sweet, you know, like this blushing thing. But he was, because he had behaved like stormed off, but I was actually the one being kind of bratty.
You become your characters.
Yeah. So he blushed while he ate his pancakes, and I apologized and told him he was right, and then he was utterly delighted. So it was good. I'm happy. Yeah.
Over there in the back.
She was wonderful. I thought it was important, it would be a good quality to have a woman be a director because, of course, because of Frida. And Julie is an artist herself, so I thought she would understand really well the spirit of a female artist. And also I thought it was important, it was very important to find a director that was extremely visual and could create a special language for the film, because we were making this film in English, but I believe that Frida Kahlo's first language was not necessarily Spanish, but this like capacity to see the world from such a new visual perspective that she saw as her own reality. And who better than, of course, Miss Julie, who has all these elements and many more I didn't even know about. I mean, she's incredibly knowledgeable about the Mexican culture, you know, the folk, everything. And I didn't know she was as sensitive as I discovered from her to be, as romantic, and had such a wonderful sense of humor. It was really great working with her.
Salma, I was curious about what was it like to be relating to Julie Taymor, both as an actor being directed by her and also being a producer who was working on the film in other ways? I mean, were there ever, those two roles ever clash?
No, there was when we met, there was a complete bond, and it became a relationship, and in which, like any wonderful friendship, I look after you, you look after me. So after 7 years of, having this baby in my belly, it was this I took it out and gave it to her, and gave it to her with absolute confidence and actually relief, and completely shut up and obey, you know, completely trusted her, which was such a wonderful feeling. And in the same hand, my part was to protect her and to make sure that anything she needed was there and was accomplished. So it didn't feel like producing or directing. It felt like a wonderful marriage. And it was a very nice experience.
Right there?
Yeah. So would any of you make a distinction between the films that directors make and the films that actors and directors make?
Well, I never felt like I was compromised in either role, to be perfectly honest. And just to, you know, to address what you said earlier about directing, trusting your, I just basically, I think that directing is just making decisions all the time. If I look at the film, I can just see everybody's hand in it. You know, it's very collaborative. And I think I feel like I was listening to Jennifer, the attention to details is really important to me, and I thought that was something that maybe would get compromised, because I'm maybe wearing too many hats, but it wasn't the case at all. In fact, I liked the pressure and staying very busy, but that's, anyway.
I don't think there is a stamp that separates actors that become directors. Actually, I think there's some that are really good, some are not so good. Like directors, I mean, it's not like all the actors that become directors are good, not all that, or they're not all character-oriented necessarily and more in the balance of telling a story visually, because it could be a cliche to think this, because we're so used to developing characters. I think that there is not, we don't have one distinctive thing that puts everybody in the same category. For me, it's completely different. I mean, everybody's different, like even just here. Because when I'm directing, I become absolutely the observer. And I don't even want to be there, because then I'm missing out on looking at it and maybe discovering something that even if I thought about it, I would not see in the moment. Maybe I'm schizophrenic, and I completely separate. But I think every case of every director, whether they come from writing or editing or acting, it's a different ways. There's nothing that can come together.
I think we've only time for 2 more questions. Right here?
I'm curious about the producing side of it, why none of that appeals to any of you.
I was a producer on The Gray Zone, and I'm really glad I did it. I think that, first of all, as a director, it is your responsibility to know your budget. And for the first time on that film, I was really dealing with some serious, we built a huge amount we built crematoria. We basically recreated 2 of the crematoria at Auschwitz at 80% scale. And there were scenes with 850 extras in the movie. And it was a budget, in the economy of Bulgaria, it was a budget with which I had never worked before. So beyond needing to know the budget intimately, I felt that I needed to have shared control over the budget. And I needed to be able to speak as a producer and not as a director to the financier of the film, who was risking a lot of money for an extremely risky project. And it was a great decision, and I really enjoyed doing it. So, although there are abhorrent aspects to being a producer, and it is thankless, and you take a lot of heat that a director doesn't take. It's something I really gravitated toward on that particular project, and I will probably do it again. I think it is a smart move if you have written and directed your script to be a producer on it.
Well, my question also relates, I guess, to the business aspects of the process and sort of arduous pre-production process that you discussed in terms of setting up a project before the photography starts. And maybe it also relates to the poisonous snake discussion. I was wondering if you could talk about the role that your agents play in helping you sort of branch out beyond acting and move into different aspects of filmmaking.
The agent doesn't want to do it. Because it's less lucrative and you spend so much time, you know, in that process. So it's not really attractive to them. You know, they were supportive, but, oh, you want to direct? Oh, great. Look, why don't we wait until, like, we do a couple of movies where actually we can make money, you know? Because Frida, you know, that was your pet project. We've been starving for this process of the Frida thing, and now it's time to, you know, get the benefits from it. And maybe you direct in a couple of years, or when you're 50, or you have all the time in the world to direct. You have this window of opportunity.
What about the snake? What does the snake have to do with the agents?
That was a joke. That was a joke. I had when I called my acting agent at the time and said, "Oh, Alan Cumming and I are writing this movie together, and it's for these people. We're going to pitch it. We're going to direct it." And I told her a bit about the story and everything. And she said, she's no longer my agent, but and she said, "Great, great, great." And then she thought she had hung up the phone. And what she said is, "I wish them a hell of a lot of luck. It's never going to happen." So I just went ahead and made the meetings. I just set up the meetings on my own, basically, with the various studios, and Fine Line was like the fourth place we pitched it, and they bought it. And then I approached a directing agent that I really liked. This was after we were in negotiations already, and said, who's a great director's agent, and I said, "I'd love you to read my script, and I was wondering if you would represent me." And then he read it, and he really liked it, and said yes. But it was already all sort of done. But yeah, so that was my experience.
I get into a situation where the two careers are really equal at this point. And so I've had a different experience. I have a really great directing agent, and I have some really wonderful acting agents. And one gets nervous when, you know, if I say I want to direct a movie, the acting agents have that reaction. But if I want to go and act, the directing agent says, "Is it really important?" And, you know, it's different economies. I mean, at least right now, and this is not a joke, I'm not trying to get a laugh here or anything. It's true. I would get more money as a director than I would as an actor.
Well, right now I get more money doing commercials than as a director. They said, you know, you're going to go talk about your day job. I think I would have to consider commercials my day job, and these are just my hobbies. But I have to say, it takes you out of circulation for a year, you know. At least if you're lucky, if you know, between the writing and the pre-production and the post-production, and at least a year. And I have to give them credit because, yeah, at the beginning they were not having it. My manager just saw it. It's a movie for Showtime. She's already taking it to Sundance. She's selling it to, and she's looking for the next, the next direct. I mean, she's excited about it. I think probably also at the beginning maybe they thought, okay, we're gonna waste a year and it's probably gonna be a piece of shit, you know. But they've been very supportive.
When I directed O, I was down in South Carolina shooting it, and Joel Cohen sent me, "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" And he said, he offered me the role of Delmar. And he said, and we start shooting in 6 weeks. I'm like, oh, perfect, you know. Finally, I get my break as an actor, you know, really, it's fun, and I can't do it. But they allowed me to edit the movie on their set. And you look for that sort of generous impulse in people at the right times.
Okay, we'll have one more question. How about right here?
Quick question for Salma. There's been sort of an explosion in Mexican cinema like the last year, Tumala También, oneself, and now that you've been empowered to produce your own films, direct your own films, what place do you want to have in Mexican cinema? Where do you want to move?
Actually, I've been in contact with that movement, supporting it in many different ways for a while. Actually, both of these directors are people I know for 15, 20 years. And for example, the writer of Y Tu Mamá También did his first short as a director, and I'm in it. I did a movie with Alfredo Ripstein, a couple of years ago that I helped produce, based on a Garcia Marquez novel, and documentaries participate, you know, so I've been sort of been there with one foot there since before the big explosion, but actually the next film I'm directing, I think Alfonso is producing with his company, and we're doing it in Spanish in Mexico. It's going to take a while because I have to do the research and write it, but we're in the works.
Well, I wanted to thank our panelists so much for giving us